All right, hi. I'm Audrey Troutt. I'm an engineering director at Comcast, and I really wish I didn't have to give this talk. I'm guessing most of you in this room either have or one day you're going to make an SDK. You're going to make some code to share with other developers. But how many of you have heard of developer experience design? Well, very few. I expected more. That's why I'm giving this talk. Okay, so developer experience design, or DX, is kind of like user experience design, or UX. We've all heard of UX, right? So UX is all about making products easy or pleasing to use. But when your services or tools or your product is something for developers, then your interface is your API. It's your SDK, right? And your users are developers. And it makes sense to understand how they work and to optimize for their experience. So I made this SDK rating scale about a year ago. I've done a year of a lot of iOS and Android SDK integrations. And I can't tell you, too many of them were absolutely frustrating and confusing. We're talking 1- and 2-star experiences out there in the industry. And worst of all, I wasn't always confident in the end that the SDK was going to work properly and not crash my app. Now, full disclosure, I don't just use this to go out and judge other people's SDKs. I actually did use this on my own SDK one time, and I gave us a 3-star experience. I did fix it after that, but it's a useful tool. There's a lot that goes into providing a good developer experience, but since I only have probably 3 minutes left, I'm just going to focus on 3 areas. The most important thing that an SDK needs to do is just something useful, right? And to be useful enough to share, it needs to fit more than just your specific use cases and your specific app architecture. There's a spectrum between being too specific and too generic, and you want to be in the middle. SDKs are too specific when they make too many assumptions around how the host app is structured and the dependencies that you have. So why would an analytics library depend on a specific HTTP client, right? It makes no sense. They have nothing to do with each other. Sometimes there's a legit reason to have a specific dependency as an SDK, like when you're offering an extension of another library, like Rescue Scheduler extends Rescue. That makes sense, right? You can also be too generic with your solutions and water down your library's features so much that it's confusing to use, not to mention a nightmare to test and maintain. It's okay to draw a line and say, we don't do that, right? So Makito, for example, doesn't provide mocking for static methods, and they don't think that you should need that. And that's great. If you disagree, you can use PowerMock. One obvious way when SDKs have gone too far and trying to solve every problem in every use case and be too generic is when they take a dozen init parameters or several dozen configuration options. I don't want to have to read several pages of documentation to learn how to start your SDK, right? If I wanted to do that much work, I would write the library myself. A related DX crime, in my opinion, is the Mega SDK. You see this a lot from SaaS companies, and they want you to integrate their enormous SDK that does everything, even if you only want to use one feature. Don't do that. You're making my app fat. No matter how great your code is, though, and how perfectly scoped your features are and how well it works, it doesn't matter if no one knows how to use it. If your library is a repo with just your code and an empty README, I'm going to talk to you right now, okay? It's not that hard. Make a README, explain what your SDK does and how to integrate it. Provide some code that I can copy and paste into my app. And even better, provide a sample app that I can run to see how it works and see if I actually want to use it. Additionally, and this is one that I rarely see, but provide a way for your SDK users to confirm that everything is working properly. What should they test? How? Maybe you have some debug logging that prints out to confirm that the data is flowing in the right direction, or maybe you just document some manual testing steps to complete after the integration. So if you build a great library and you have excellent onboarding and integration instructions, it doesn't end there. I can't think of a single SDK that never needs to be updated. There are always going to be bugs or new features that you want to add, or OS version updates, or any number of reasons why at least a minimum amount of maintenance is going to be required. For open source software, that's on us, the community, right? You got to care for the libraries you love. But if you're an open source maintainer and you can't maintain your library, you don't owe us anything, but put some documentation in there for how to take up builds and maintenance so that anyone else can follow in your footsteps. For commercial APIs and SDKs, though, I expect your library to keep working for me as long as I'm paying you money. And I expect you to be releasing on a regular cadence and notifying me if you identify issues or risks that might impact me. All that hard work that you put in to creating a frictionless path to success with the initial integration, it needs to be repeated for all the features that you're adding in the future. In the rush to get features to market, developers often lag in updating documentation and sample apps. This is really important, folks. If it's not documented, it might as well not exist. We put SDKs out there because we want people to use them. Don't undermine that mission by providing a poor developer experience. Let's all stop making SDKs that suck.